Yeah, French politics, it's a oxymoron. It doesn't work. I mean, the whole we have the same problem in Ireland. We have so many different parties. Whoever gets represented, it's like, do we though? Because they all seem to be voting for the same bullshit that's leading everything to get worse and worse.
So, anyways, let's move on to the French election update. I know we talked about this a couple of weeks ago when the French elections were going through, and I believe it was our first show of Sunset Rants. So let's get into it. So we got how the French elections results unfolded. A left-wing coalition unexpectedly surged at and the far-right National Rally fell short of predictions. But no coalition captured a majority in parliament, meaning months of gridlock could lie ahead. You can see right here, those are the seats. So the New Popular Front had 26.9% of the votes. And then, of course, the Allies, or say the Moderate Party, 22.3%, National Rally, Allies at 37.3%. I think that was the first. This looks like the first one because National Rally at 37.3. And let's see if there's another one. Nope, I don't see it. All right, no, that's fine. All right, so leaders of France's far-right National Rally tried to put a brave face on projected results in the parliamentary elections on Sunday that showed the party had failed to win the most seats, saying they remained on a path to power despite a disappointing night. The National Rally, which had finished first in an initial round of ballot last week, but a couple weeks ago, was sent to hold the most seats ever in the National Assembly, said the party's president, Jordan Bardella. He denounced a political strategy by its centrist and left-wing rivals to withdraw candidates from the hundreds of races to avoid splitting their support, saying they had deprived the country of a far-right government. I mean, that's what happened. That's what happened. I mean, you knew you were going to lose, so you decided to invoke a strategy against it where you knew that they wouldn't have anybody else to go for. So I mean, of course, it's no longer political. That is not a political move. That is a power strategy. There's a difference because you're clearly the minority in the country right now. It's that mentality. It's like if I can't win, you can't win, and that's how I see it. Well, anyways, let's move on to this is Chatham House. 4 far-reaching consequences of France's shock election result. All right, the snap parliamentary elections that concluded on the 7th of July were called by President Emmanuel Macron to regain the upper hand after his party's weak performance in June's European parliamentary election. Yet the outcome has achieved the contrary, creating political mayhem that has undermined the president's power and shaken the foundations of the Fifth Republic as never before. You know, uh, what do you expect when the majority has no say? When it's clear that the majority of the country, wants to go in one direction, but yet it's the minority party who happens to get all of these seats. This is how civil wars start. Because it's clear that's not how I'm not going to say that's because I don't know French government and how their parliamentary system works, but oh my god, my that was my producer was like, it just doesn't. Actually, do you want to come on stage? Yeah, you are the
Hey,
token
how's it going? That's
European.
an A's token European here.
There he is. All right, this you might actually know a little bit more about this than I would.
I highly doubt that. I've been so depressed with all the shit going on lately. I've just been ignoring a lot of this stuff. So, well, I'll give it my best shot. I'm Irish. I'll just bullshit my way through it and hope it sticks.
Hey, let's go.
So, yeah. So the whole thing about politics is that French politics, it's a oxymoron. It doesn't work. I mean, the whole we have the same problem in Ireland. We have so many different parties. Like we've said, a lot of people have complaints about the American system of the two party system. And don't get me wrong. Let's be fair. it only works if both parties are actually doing what they're saying they're doing. But
Right.
when they're a uniparty, like Democrats and Republicans, like it's at this point like, what's your favorite color, red or blue? Oh,
Hmm.
you like red? Okay, you're a Republican. What's the difference between red and blue? Like, I don't know. Like they're all kind of working together. But in Ireland, like, oh, we have all these different parties, so everyone gets represented. It's like, do we though? Because they all seem to be voting for the same bullshit that's leading everything to get worse and worse. So it's like, I don't know. But yeah, I mean, one thing I was looking at is like, whenever I look at like in France, there's like the left wing party, the centrist party, and then the far right extremists. Like, well, if Le Pen is far right, okay, let's say she is. Who's
Hmm.
right wing then? Like, who's the center right? Oh, there is no one. Oh, that's because you're just using hyperbolic language and you're full of it. Like that's the thing. Like they're like one thing I will give the left credit for. They are phenomenal at branding and semantics.
Hmm.
Like they understand. Like they don't have. What's saying? Like it doesn't have to be true to be believed. It just has to be told over and over again, and just get the rounded through people's heads. Like like for example, I used to watch Hollywood content. Like all the stuff from Hollywood just festering into Western media. They are
Hmm.
phenomenal at saying Democrats are good, Republicans bad, left wing good, right wing bad. That's literally what they just rounded over your head over and over.
Well, that's not just Hollywood though. That's also like media
BBC, if you
and
watch their recent content, it's utter woke garbage. Like every single show they have eventually becomes more woke as time goes on. Like there are shows I
probably
used to watch in late 2000s or early 2010 that were like kind of moderate and normal, and they're still going on now, and like you can tell they're really pushing that kind of politics. I mean, Doctor Who's a
exactly.
perfect example of that.
Yeah, it says here on the French institutions. France's politics will be less presidential, putting the Fifth Republic under serious stress. It has been based on a powerful head of state since the foundation of de Gaulle. I think I
De
said that
Gaulle,
right. De Gaulle, yeah, de Gaulle,
Charles de Gaulle. I think he was one of the first presidents, or was he a major player in World War II? I don't know. Don't quote me on that.
probably. As he was anticipating this, President Macron made as many
Macron.
ambassadors, pervicts, and senior civil servant appointments as possible ahead of the election's second round, apparently expecting he would have to share power from then on. The Fifth Republic will look more like the Fourth, which relied on the Parliament and is famous for an unstable and fragile governing coalitions. Well, no shit. Like, eh,
Oh no, that's like they're not worried about sharing power. It's a factor like they're now losing power to the actual people.
yeah,
Like they're
they
not
are.
sharing power with the Les Miserables. They're sharing power with the peasants. Like how dare
Great
you
musical, by the way.
question all the stuff? Thank you. I only know the one or two. Uh,
Don't worry
like
about it.
they're like, oh no, like our actual citizens are complaining and they actually want us to take care of them. Like, no, we need to bring in all the random migrants from these other countries. Like, what? Like
Yeah, it
that's
makes absolutely no sense.
they're afraid like the unkempt masses want to be taken care of and the elitists aren't getting their way. The ivory tower dumbasses and the academics are just like,
Right.
oh, how dare they question us? Don't they
Yeah.
know we're the enlightened ones? We know we have the 4D chess like 1,000 year idea. Like we're seeing so far in the future, we know exactly what we're doing.
Yeah. Sometimes I think they got AI chips in their brains, thinking that they're much smarter. But anyways,
That's giving them too much credit.
I talked to Scrap earlier, um, and he was talking about
So I think
how
it's more like Ratatouille, where they have a rat like with their hair and like they're controlling their minds and all that shit.
right, right, right. I talked to Scrap earlier. He was talking about how like the influence of the internet, and if you look at the difference between the internet when Obama was not, I wouldn't say first in office. I would say the beginning of his second term to the end of his second term.
So about 2012, give or take.
Yeah, so to 2008 to 2012, that was where everything started to ramp up. But
Yeah, I
from
guess I'd say that.
2012 to 2016, it exploded like at least 5 or 6 times the size when it comes
Yeah,
to
that's
like
true. Like
content
I
and stuff
didn't
like
really
that.
get onto like the internet until about 2010, give or take. So around 20, that's from I know what you mean. Like from 2008 to 2012, that was like the Wild West. That was like the golden era where people were just making what they wanted. There was
Oh,
no
it
real
was
restrictions.
great. It was
Yeah, it was awesome.
absolutely
And then yeah, 2012. That's
glorious.
when like I know, especially around 2014. That's when things really started to get clamped down with infiltration. That's when people started to understand the algorithms.
Yeah,
That's when it
yeah,
really got interesting.
exactly.
Or
You
not
know,
interesting. I mean, that's where things really started to go downhill.
right, 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 right. But what he was talking about is how the influence of the internet. and how the institution started to grab a hold of those and only allowed certain content out. And it's the reason why we had such polarity, going into Trump's term, and then during Trump's term, there was only certain people that were really allowed to speak, and anybody else, they were either shut down or they were silenced, or they were muted almost. And now that we know that that's what's been happening, when you look at the Twitter files and the involvement of the government, or at least the American government, making sure that certain things don't get out, it only made it 10 times worse, because now everybody's like, oh, okay, free game. It's fair game now. We're just going to start throwing out everything and try to catch us. So now it's much harder for the government to control the amount of information that's coming out. And yes, we already know that the government's been doing it. So it's not a surprise. All right. So
Well,
let's
yeah,
just
well, I mean, one thing I said before, the left are amazing at Brandon. Like, you have to remember, like, from 2010 to 2020, like, I was basically just a passive leftist
mhm.
because I was just going along with the flow, all that stuff. I didn't really question it. It was only during lockdown that's when I really started to, like, when I was forced to spend so much time with all these people, and I started to really get to know leftists. And I really started to talk to them. Is when I kind of woke up and realized, ironically, I woke up. Yeah, I woke up. I realized just how insane the propaganda had gotten, just how far reaching it was. Like, that's when I really started to know, like, just how bad things had gotten. But by that stage, it's like, so on the one hand, lockdown was, weirdly enough, it was the best and worst things that happened to establishment, because it gave them all the potential for power. It gave them all the tools, and it gave them just how much they could get away with. But here, it caused such a divide. Like, so many people now are aware of what's going on that, yeah, we are kind of like, it's now harder for them to get past the bullshit. Like, passing it off as propaganda is getting much harder for them. So it's kind of a weird, like, that's why I hear a lot of people talk about civil wars. Like, I don't know, like, they're not wrong. I mean, look at what's, like, I know they're trying to, like, for example, in Ireland, there's this whole thing. There's an area called Kulak,
Mhm.
and the media are trying to suppress it, like the stories about it. But, like, basically, a bunch of migrants are coming in. Kulak are saying we're going to build all these, we're going to build accommodation and all this stuff for them. And the Irish people are like, we have a huge homeless crisis with the Irish people already because the 2008 crisis, that, like, the recession, all that stuff. We still haven't fully recovered, and because of lockdown, cost of living has gone up to a point that we're back into a recession. We're going to be in there soon.
Mhm.
Why aren't you focusing on the actual Irish civilians? And why are we taking all this? And then the whole story about the random migrant who somehow got asylum here, got citizenship, but then he randomly went mad and just went up to a preschool and tried to attack a bunch of 5-year-olds with a knife. And he ended up injuring one or two 5-year-olds, and he actually seriously injured one or two of the teachers. And
Mhm.
people are sitting there like,
I remember
how did
that.
this guy get in the
I
country?
remember
And people
this.
are saying the media are actually trying to suppress it, and like, oh, anyone who questions it is a racist. Like, they spend more time focusing on the people protesting it than the actual guy himself. You know what I mean? And if you
Right.
question it, like, oh, you're racist, like, oh, you're a far right extremist, like, if a far right extremist is someone who cares about the safety of children and cares about his own country well being, why was that a bad thing? Like, how is that an insult?
Right.
Like,
Right. Right. No.
that's what they don't realize, is that the words they're using now are losing more meaning to genuinely real, like, people who are now living in the real world.
Exactly. Oh, right. So this last section here, this is a video by, looks like, Michael Heaver, and he's on YouTube, and he's going to kind of break down what do you think the future entails for France. So let's take a look.
Well, some pretty disturbing developments over in France. Talks of potential fraud, a suspicion even of ballot box stuffing. Before we get to that, though, just to bring you up to
Does that sound familiar?
Unfortunately,
Yeah.
the post election state of play in France, where, of course, you did see mass tactical voting, and I think over 200 candidates in the end withdrawing from the second round of voting, meaning that Marine Le Pen's party ended up coming third in terms of seats, 143 to Emmanuel Macron's alliance on 168, and the left-wing alliance coming out as the winners on 182 seats. Now, since then, perhaps unsurprisingly, you've seen a concerted attempt from the French left to block those from Marine Le Pen's party from roles in the French Assembly.
See, this is interesting because it's like because this is like if the Republicans own the House, but yet the Democrats get to decide who's the speaker. Like, like you would think that you would have a problem with that, right?
Well, that's the thing. That's why like more and more like that's like it's funny. The more aggressively they try to hold on to power, the more damage they're doing long term. Like the more they keep aggressively acting this way, the more people are starting to wake up. It's like, hang on, how are they allowed to do this? Wait, since when can they do that? Like, wait, they didn't seriously pull that, did they? Like that's what more and more people are starting to realize this. So the more aggressively they panic, like the more they react, it's like being stuck in a spiral. The more they start to react, the more tangled up they're getting.
Yeah, this almost seems like a deep state conspiracy. Almost like, okay, well, we've never tried this before. Let's see how they react. But I'm pretty sure there's going to be a lot more coming out of France soon.
And this is played
Well, I mean,
out big time. Marine Le Pen's National Rally failing to get any of the key executive positions in the National Assembly Bureau, whereas the New Popular Front there, that left-wing alliance, actually won 12 of the 22. And you've got there Yael Braun-Pivet, an ally of Emmanuel Macron, actually re-elected as the new president of the National Assembly. Essentially, I think that's a speaker role. Now, even she has said that the exclusion of the RN, the National Rally, is not normal in terms of them not having a vice president, saying that the voice of the party would still be heard. You also saw the National Rally absent from parliamentary committee chairmanships, with Macron's party securing 6 and the left-wing alliance getting the remaining 2 there. And Marine Le Pen herself hitting out at this, saying we respect democracy and we believe that all forces must be represented. But when I read this, I mean, this really is quite astonishing that this has somehow happened in France, which is that there's been a botched vote in the French parliament and claims of fraud, even allegations of ballot stuffing. Because what has happened here, and it is a massive shock in France, that actually saw extra envelopes being found. So what happened was a vote had to be re-ran in the French National Assembly after more than the allowed number of ballots was cast.
So I'm going to have a Roma Nation next season on a lot of the issues that happened in the 2020 election. You know how, I guess, if you look at the some of the indictments that Trump has against him, one of them is in the state of Georgia, where he said that he knew that there was fraud that was going on down there, but he had no way to really prove it. Well, some time has gone by since 2020, and there's a lot of information a lot of people do not know, and we're going to bring it to you here first on Roma Nation, or at least on Roma Nation on Saturday, not on this show, next season. So if you guys think that'd be something that you would want to listen to, let us know, and I'll see if I can move the show up. But anyways, let's continue.
So an investigation has been called for subsequently because there's been suspicions of ballot stuffing in a vote for deputy speakers in the French Assembly. After hours of votes for these roles of deputy speakers, ballot boxes somehow were found to contain 10 envelopes more than the number of eligible voters. So that prompted a rerun. But clearly, those on the left and the right here demanding an investigation as to how on earth this could have happened. But that is the state of play in France post-election anyway. Let me know what you make of that in the comments below, please, guys. I will, of course, keep bringing you all the latest on this and much more. So please do whack this video a quick thumbs up. And, of course, as ever, cheers for watching.
All right. I don't know who that guy is. I think I'm going to subscribe to him. He's going to let us know what's going on over there. But I think everyone was suspicious of this even before the second round of elections, and how confident Macron was, even though he didn't win. I find that very suspicious and odd, that in how he was like, yeah, we'll be all right. Like, who does that when you're losing by 13 points? Like,
yeah, like it's. I mean, like I said, they're basically bragging about how they're literally just rigging everything now at this point. that there is. Like, I think more people realize like, oh, we don't have any control, and that's one thing. That's one of my pet peeves. They keep calling it a democracy. We're not a democracy. Like, even in Ireland, like, we are our constitutional republic. We're the Republic of Ireland. It's the Republic of France. There's a difference between the two. A pure democracy, like, anything can be voted on, anything can be done, whatever. A constitutional republic, you have democratic processes, sure, but there is, like, you have rights and all these things that, like, oh, you cannot mess with these things. These are things that you cannot vote on or change. There's a huge difference because in a pure democracy, it is literally mob rule with extra steps. That's basically it.